Kia! Welcome to the Mythbusters. Today we're going to be busting the movie The Dark Horse. Now this isn't your regular action-packed movie, nor is it your NZ classic Taika Waititi comedy movie. No, this movie is based on a true story about this very talented yet troubled chess player. This movie follows Genesis 14. He was diagnosed at a very young age with bipolar disorder. Now, this movie does a very good job of showing us his disorder. We can see that Genesis is affected a lot by his mental health disability in his life. We can see when he is troubled and what he does to cope, but we'll talk about that later. Genesis's mental health disability affects him in many aspects of his Hauora. It affects him socially. Most of the people around him think that he's Porami. Everyone around Genesis thinks that he is crazy. So that impacts his social part of his Hauora very badly. Not only does his mental health disability affect him socially, but it also affects him emotionally. We can see his mental health, his emotional Hauora, being affected heavily by his bipolar disorder. We can see him having such high highs, being in such a good mood, and then his mood quickly falls into a depressive state. That's how bipolar disorder can affect his mood. Some of the strategies that Genesis uses to keep his mental health disorder in place is the prescribed pills that he gets. We can see him popping a few pills when he's troubled. So again, the chess scene, when he comes back home from the chess club, and his doctor recommends that he should have 8 hours of sleep every single night. Now, I know that the character I'm focusing on is Genesis, but I've never seen the acting of Cliff Curtis. Techniques that I've noticed that Genesis's actor used was, I noticed that Genesis always had that fear of that lingering smell of anxiety around him. Curtis Cliff really brought out the life in Genesis. It really felt like Curtis was Genesis. Even seeing the actual picture of Genesis in the credits, it felt like that no, Cliff Curtis is Genesis. Techniques that Cliff Curtis used. The mumbling, the always mumbling, the lingering of anxiety around Genesis. With the technology, I noticed that Genesis didn't have any front teeth, so I think that goes into the props section, and the props is the technology. They reused a lot of sets over and over again. It was like it was a movie taking place in a small area, but they used their things, they used their elements wisely. There are lots of conventions in the movie as well. Not a lot of them, but in the first half of the movie, when we saw Genesis playing chess by himself, and probably having an episode playing chess, we could see his backstory of his brother teaching him chess, and his brother telling him teaching him how to play chess. That really brought some ideas into people's head as to who Genesis is and what his backstory is, like the props, the alcohol, the substances. All those props really showed what kind of person Genesis, what kind of background Genesis comes from.